you despise Zumba as much as I do, do not do Zumba.
You can't, do some jazz squares to Pitbull, Julia? Come on.
No.
This is On Nutrition, a podcast from Mayo Clinic where we dig into the latest nutrition trends and research to help you understand what's health and what's hype. I'm Tara Schmidt, a registered dietitian with Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. This episode, weight loss maintenance. But first, we have a listener question about the episode on sugar.
My name is Barry. I just listened to the podcast on sugar. Stevia was mentioned. Monk fruit was not. And I'm not sure if stevia is the same as monk fruit, but I'd like to know the answer to that if possible. Because I bought monk fruit to add to my baking, and I need to know whether that's something I have to calculate as the number of grams of quote-unquote sugar I'm taking into my body. Thank you.
Hi, Barry. You probably know that added sugar in your food is a health concern, but are natural or artificial sweeteners any better? Both monk fruit and stevia are sugar alternatives, or what we call non-nutritive sweeteners. They're up to 100 times or even 300 times sweeter than white sugar. So when you use them in place of calorie-containing sweeteners like honey, non-nutritive sweeteners can decrease the total number of carbs and calories found in your foods and beverages, which may help with weight management and blood sugar control. But the verdict is still out on their long-term effects, so it may be best to work towards decreasing your intake of all added sweeteners, whether they have calories or not. I'm glad you asked about baking, because I love to bake as well. I recommend starting with replacing about a quarter of the sugar and gradually increasing it to 100% as you become more familiar with the taste and texture of the product. Remember, monk fruit is much sweeter, so you may be able to replace sugar with monk fruit, but be aware that the conversion ratio may not be 1-to-1. Thanks for your question. Now on to the show. Intentionally losing weight is a huge accomplishment, but it's only the beginning of a lifelong and life-changing journey. Because as much as we wish we could just will ourselves to stay a certain size, our bodies are always changing, and so are we. And according to some estimates, 80 to 85% of people who lose a large amount of weight will regain it. It might feel like the odds, or your body, are against you, but you're not alone. There are all kinds of strategies, resources, and people here to help, including my colleague, Julia Jurgensen. Julia is a nurse practitioner in family medicine and bariatric surgery who works with patients every day to help them lose weight and keep it off long term. Thanks for being here today.
I'm so excited to be here and share all this fun stuff with you.
So you and I know that there are many, many ways to lose weight. We've got this whole heap of dieting and exercising. Now prescription anti-obesity or weight loss medications are available. We've got bariatric procedures and we've got bariatric surgeries, gastric sleeves and bypasses. We've got balloons that we're putting in people's stomachs now. It's all very exciting. Mm-hmm. And you and I are never here to shame or praise any one particular method because everyone's needs are different. We look at patients as individuals. We look at their health histories individually. Why do some approaches work for some and not others?
I think everyone's different, whether it comes to diabetes or blood pressure. Like each disease is unique. Mm-hmm. So obesity is no different. So what works for patient A isn't going to necessarily work for patient B, and what works today may not work 5 or 10 years from now for the same patient. So we have to really be always thinking about what do we need in this moment for our patient, and what do we need to be thinking about today, tomorrow, 5 years down the road, and how do we need to adjust for that person.
And I feel like we have even been in meetings or care conferences together where I'm talking about the patient's eating habits today. The surgeon is talking about their health needs today. You are talking about their likelihood of success in 3 years. And it's actually okay that we all have these different opinions because they're all valid, but it's really complicated.
It is complicated. And I think we need all the disciplines together to be able to successfully help our patients.
Let's talk about some of the different ways people lose weight and what kind of outcomes you've seen. We call them pathways in the clinic. It could be a lifestyle pathway, diet and exercise, a medication pathway, surgical, or procedural. Do you have some stats or insight into how these usually turn out?
I'll give you some general statistics. Certainly, there's outliers to all of these. But in general, that lifestyle piece, if we see 5 to 10% of body weight loss, that's phenomenal. And I celebrate that with patients because often patients feel like that's not a success.
No one ever believes us that that's
Right?
great news.
But it's phenomenal. Weight loss medications, again, 5% up to like 25% with these new injectables. We're seeing some phenomenal results with those injectables. But again, they really vary depending on the weight loss medication. And then surgery, we are anywhere from 25 to 45%. It depends on our surgical type and the patient. So it's a lot of variation within there. But it depends on the patient. It depends on the pathway. But there is a huge variation between 5% and 45%.
And this is changing, especially with these medications. But what we used to say, or kind of what we used to draw in office, is this pyramid where on the bottom is lifestyle. And we're saying, okay, this is the foundation, everyone. I don't care if you're getting surgery. You have to do the foundation, which is dieting and exercising and behavioral change. And then we moved up the pyramid into medication and then into procedures, into surgeries. We used to say the higher on this pyramid you go, highest being surgery, the most weight you are likely to lose because of the intervention. But as you go up that pyramid, you're also increasing the risk, right? Surgery is a lot different risk than like, hey, I'm going to go count my calories on an app. So sometimes that's how we have to kind of weigh the pros and cons. And then, like we were talking about, look at that patient and their medical history and their lifestyle as a whole.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that first year after someone has actually been successful in reaching their goal weight or an improved weight, whatever that may be. Sometimes I call it the honeymoon phase.
Absolutely. That first year after surgery or weight loss medication, whatever it may be, we got to goal. Things are really good, right? We've got a new set of clothes, a new set of patterns in our day. Confidence. We have lots of people telling us how amazing we look. And, we're driven by feedback, right? And so we're getting, that feedback.
Kind of like an external validation.
That's a really awesome place to be. So that reinvigorates, like, let me keep going, right? But those people that are like, oh, wow, you look so fabulous, that eventually changes. Those people have already seen you. They're used to the new way you look. And so that external validation ends eventually, and that honeymoon phase is no longer going to remain long term. And so then it turns into, what am I doing as the individual? Am I continuing my habits? Am I continuing to do the things I need to do to maintain the success I've had with my weight loss, however I got there? Because I'm not going to always have those external reminders. And I think that's often the hardest phase. It's when the rubber hits the road. It's that long-term maintenance phase that is, honestly, I think the hardest part about weight loss.
And it's sometimes less exciting, not only because you're getting less external validation, but because you're not seeing as many changes, right? The first pound you lose, you're like, yes, this is working.
Yeah.
And the first new pair of jeans you get, you're like, yes, look at these. But you cannot continue to lose weight and continue and continue until you are 0 pounds. Not realistic and not possible. So eventually you will hit some kind of plateau and you will no longer get the validation from the scale. And you will no longer get, like you said, maybe from other people. Your doctor's already impressed with you and they're happy with you, but you can't continue to get off medications if you're not on any medications anymore. So do you feel like the biggest challenge is continuing to do the work?
I think continuing to do the work, but also continuing to maintain those habits in the environment we live in. We live in this obesogenic society. We live in this world where you walk or drive down the road and you are bombarded by food. You turn on your TV, you're bombarded by food. And so that constant reminder of all these foods, all these things, And that desire to go back to old habit has to be there, right? So, how do you continue to remind yourself, like, oh, I have new habits and I'm not going to choose my old habits? And it's hard because we live in a society that is very different than what many people need in order to succeed in maintaining weight loss.
And let's just say there are no billboards for salad, right? And there are no commercials for fruits. Okay, maybe avocados. I think they have a commercial on there. But what we see as these triggers and reminders in the ease of getting food, we're not talking about nutrient-dense, low-calorie foods. We're talking about ultra-processed, very calorie-dense, likely low nutritionally valuable foods. So it's the opposite of what would benefit our population. You and I don't love this fact, but we do know that the majority of people who lose a large amount of weight will gain at least some of it back.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can talk about habits. I think we can talk about motivation. Are there also biological factors at play?
Yeah. There's kind of this new theory out there, the set point theory, that our body over time, it's like fighting us. So set point is what each individual person's body determines as their comfort zone. Like, your body is happy at this weight, and everyone's body is happier at a different weight. And that doesn't mean exactly 1 pound. It's a little bit of a range. And we can move that range, but the body likes to be at a specific range. And it says, hey, now, you've reduced calories on me. And it is literally sending signals like hunger pains and constantly sending it to us. And it's literally slowing down our metabolism to bring us back to our set point.
Are you okay? Like, why are we losing weight?
Yeah, like, hello, like, let's go back. Why are you doing this to me? And so basically it's fighting against our efforts that we are choosing.
How I describe it is, this is where my body kind of naturally goes towards, kind of regardless of what I'm doing sometimes, which is a pain in the butt if you don't want your weight at where your set point weight is.
And that doesn't mean we don't get a win or we give up, right? We can choose what we feed our body. We can choose how we exercise and the sleep that we get and the stress management and the medications. We can choose all those things, but our body is going to use certain mechanisms and fight back against us somewhat.
And we saw this in the Biggest Loser study. So we are not just talking about the show, and you can have positive or negative feelings about that show. That's fine with me. But what we care a lot about is the information that we got afterwards and like years afterwards of these contestants. We know lost a large amount of weight. We know they lost it very quickly. And we know that their health was improved, and that was positive. But then we found that they had significantly slower metabolisms, which you can guess with a lower body weight, but also were struggling with increased hunger. It's harder to keep the weight off. I always say that there's this confounding factor of they're no longer living on the set of The Biggest Loser. So can you explain some of those more physiological aspects of why the body makes it difficult to maintain weight loss?
So we have some hormones in our bodies. The ghrelin hormone, it's like our hunger hormone. And then we have leptin, which is like our full hormone. And so their hunger hormone is like revving up, and their leptin hormone is like, I'm just going to kind of wean off. So they're trying to say like, oh, I want my ghrelin to go down and my leptin to go up. And then their bodies are like, oh, we're just going to do almost the opposite.
Yeah.
And so again, that kind of goes back to that set point theory of their bodies are slowing their metabolism down and fighting against all the efforts that they did in that rapid weight loss that they experienced during the actual show.
And now they're back in their own kitchens
with all their own environments.
Yeah. Let's talk about bariatric surgery, because when someone undergoes weight loss or bariatric surgery, some of the things that you were talking about change, right? So sometimes ghrelin and leptin are impacted. Often we also have a change in the size of someone's stomach, or sometimes they're plumbing, as I say, like how their intestines are routed. So when someone regains weight after bariatric surgery, Is this a result of the surgery itself, a complication or a failure? Is this lifestyle habits? What's going on here?
That is a big question. So sometimes patients that gain weight after bariatric surgery, it can be a surgical complication, such as an outlet dilation, where literally the plumbing should be a certain size and it's actually bigger. Or they have an extra hole where they shouldn't have a hole. Well, obviously, then we can have extra food going through and
Mhm.
they're going to be hungry. In that case, that is a surgical complication that we in the surgical world can help correct, and that procedure can then lead to weight loss. On the other hand, there can also be a lot of personal behavioral changes that happen after surgery that can lead to weight. And it's not even necessarily really rapid weight gain or something that patients even realize that they do. It could be really gradual. It could be something as simple as starting to eat throughout the day. People typically call it grazing. I don't love that term, but kind of a continuum of eating. When we continue to eat into a small stomach, that kind of breaks the purpose of the surgery and it allows you to eat all day long. You can also binge through surgery sometimes. Patients have maladaptive eating through these surgeries. Patients can tell us that they have a loss of control with their eating, so they just continue to eat despite feeling very, very full. And that can actually lead to those outlets being dilated
Mhm.
or enlarged. We can also have to think about it may not be the calories just going in, but what's going out? Or
Yeah.
is the lifestyle just sedentary, right?
Mhm.
Are you sitting all day at work? Are you not exercising? What is that factor too? What's the liquid calorie look like? I call that the sneaky calorie or the low hanging fruit. It's always the first thing that I try to go after when I'm thinking about people's habits and what can we change when we're starting to think about weight gain after surgery.
You're talking a little bit about behavioral drift. So,
Mhm.
in the first year, maybe even 2 years after my weight loss intervention, I am diligent. I am following I was going to say rules, I should say guidelines. I
Yeah.
am doing what I was told. I'm measuring,
Yes.
whatever it may be.
Yes.
And that gets old. Like, we can be honest. I'll tell people and my patients, like, this is not necessarily fun. No one
Mhm.
loves to count calories or measure their food. It's necessary in a lot of cases. And in this case, I'm trying to prevent your outlet from being dilated. I'm trying to keep your weight loss successful, or I'm trying to keep you at a healthier weight. But year after year after year, our habits can kind of, as we call it, drift back into old habits. And so it's not this automatic regain and I'm back to my baseline weight. It's a pound here and a pound
Mm.
there and 2 pounds. And it can be very, very gradual. But over the course of 10 years, 15 years, it can be pretty dramatic.
Absolutely. And it's hard doing something like measuring all your food gets so boring and repetitive.
The pain in the butt.
We don't even want to do every single no, thank you.
Just
So,
kidding.
we understand that. So, it's learning how to do what you need to do in order to not drift completely away and recognizing when you need to tighten up and when you can loosen the reins. And I think that's really truly the value of having patients coming back and seeing their team because that's when they recognize it's like, oh, I'm drifting.
Let's talk a little bit about weight loss medications. So there are weight loss medications that have been around for a very long time. We know that, but I don't think the public has always known that or been as familiar. But let's talk about what happens when someone stops taking a weight loss medication. So a lot of times we were talking about Wegovy and these GLP-1s, and people don't necessarily want to be on them forever. Right now, as of today's date, they are expensive. Sometimes they cause side effects, which you can argue is the mechanism of action or part of it or not. But there's a fear now of, okay, but if I go off this medication, what's going to happen?
Unfortunately, most people regain a substantial amount of the weight they lost when they go off of the injectable GLP-1 medication. So the Ozempics, the Wegovy's, all of those injectable medications. And that's the tricky part. So these are medications that are designed for significant weight loss, but meant for long-term, lifelong use.
And that's really challenging to share with someone, but I kind of will explain to someone, if I'm giving you a tool that is impacting your hunger, right? So I'm decreasing the hunger signals and sometimes the craving that's coming from your brain. I'm also decreasing your gastric emptying, so I'm helping you to stay fuller longer. That's what's working. And if I take those tools away, you're going to go back to baseline. So your hunger is going to return. Your normal gastric emptying is going to return. So it's kind of a expectation that you would have regained. And that's not the blame of the person. It's just, okay, you were on a blood pressure medication and now you're off of it. Your blood pressure is going to go up. And it's really hard to maintain that lower body weight without that tool because we actually know that your metabolism is lower now.
Exactly.
So no matter how you lose weight, diet and exercise, medications, or surgery, maintaining weight loss is a real challenge. Once the newness and compliments fade, it's not easy to keep up that vital, but also very boring work. There's a couple of reasons weight tends to come back. For one, our bodies like to stay in a general weight range, called our set point range. Anytime we move away from that, our hormones and metabolism adjust to try to bring us back to that baseline. Another reason people tend to regain weight is behavioral drift. They gradually slide back into old habits over time. Weight gain can also happen due to surgical complications. So, long story short, we've got our work cut out for us. Let's get strategic and talk about some do's and don'ts for weight loss maintenance. Let's talk about rate of weight loss. I think most people would agree with me that if we lost like 5 pounds in 5 days or 30 pounds in 30 days, we'd be quite thrilled. But does slow and steady typically win the race?
I would say in most equations, yes. Slow and steady wins the race. I say the only time that this is not the norm is in the surgical world. First of all, it tends to be a more sustainable weight loss. We tend to not affect the metabolism. We're not affecting like muscle loss because when we have that like dramatic weight loss, we tend to lose fat and muscle. So slow and steady tends to be more of a true fat loss. And then we're not just like doing something crazy like going on a liquid diet or eating grapefruits for a week.
Cabbage soup or whatever people did. I often tell patients that your percent adherence to whatever plan we're talking about, whatever changes we're talking about, is likely more important than the plan that you're selecting. Can you do it? Can you do it well? Can you do it for a long time?
Absolutely. Because if I tell you, Tara, to go eat fish and broccoli and you
brown rice.
I hate all those things, then I've done you no good.
No.
Right? Versus like if we come up with a plan that you leave my office saying, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. What a much more successful plan you're going to have.
Yes.
Food is also enjoyment, right? It's not just our fuel. It is enjoyable. And we want our patients to enjoy their food, even if we're losing weight.
Once people are at a lower weight, what do you think are some of the most important behaviors that they can avoid? Let's start with the don't do this list first.
The things that I like to say, let's not add back in things like unintentional snacking, like you're sitting at your desk and all of a sudden the chip bag is open and you have no idea how you got through half the bag. Lack of movement, just sitting all day and not recognizing that you haven't moved from your desk.
When you mentioned unintentional snacking, that also made me think of liquid calories. It's so easy to start drinking something sugary, and next thing you know, it's all gone and you don't even feel full. What are some examples of liquid calories that you've come across? I feel like this could be quite a long list.
So soda in the South, sweet tea is a big thing. Alcohol.
Juice, Sports drinks.
Energy drinks,
Mhm.
milk. I'm good with milk, but the flavored milks is where it gets tricky.
Or milk in excess.
Sugar-based coffees are everywhere. I believe Dunkin' has a drink out there right now that has the equivalent of like 14 donuts.
In sugar?
Sugar. 14 donuts. So basically, what I'm saying is you could eat like
13
13 donuts and you'd still have less sugar than the one coffee drink. Or you know what you could do is just have black coffee and one donut and you'd probably be more satisfied.
Yeah, so when you look at it mathematically and from a satiety standpoint, hey, like you can probably actually just enjoy that donut and you're coming out better, shockingly, than having the special drink.
I've been known to like literally rewrite patients' coffee orders in my office.
I think it's fun. I'm like, do you know that you can ask for 2 pumps instead of 4?
And then they're like, I don't want to be that kind of person. I'm like, why? You're paying $7.
I'll sometimes have a conversation with patients in an absolutely neutral way, not blaming, not shaming, but say, what do you feel like were some of the contributors, habit-wise, to your weight gain? And most people know I can list 10 for me right now. And then those, for that person specifically, are the ones that we need to like avoid like the plague, because those were triggering for some people. Some people do drink liquid calories and some people don't. So if I lecture someone about soda who's never drank soda in their life, like what a waste of your time and my time. So sometimes I'll look at what were their habits like when they had a higher body weight or when they had less healthy habits and say, we need to really be mindful of these because it sounds like they could be your personal triggers to excess calorie intake.
I love that.
And let's talk about exercise, because I tend to emphasize exercise more in the weight loss maintenance phase than I do in the weight loss phase.
I do too. I think exercise is how we can actually rev up that metabolism, and especially weight training, right?
Yes.
Our muscles burn more calories than our fat cells. They also take up less space in our clothes. So we need to figure out, number one, what kind of exercise do you like? If you despise Zumba as much as I do not do Zumba.
You can't like do some jazz squares to Pitbull, Julia? Come on.
No. But if you love weight training and you want to do it by yourself at home, do it yourself at home with a video. If you need to go to the gym and you need to be involved in a class, go to a gym and be involved in a class. I do think that we have to have strength training involved in it, and it needs to be at least 150 minutes per week to help us with that weight loss maintenance.
And likely more once you're in that weight loss maintenance phase.
Yes.
Sorry, everyone.
Yes.
For decades, we have watched research that's come out of the National Weight Control Registry. So this registry is kind of like an ongoing study that has been tracking over 10,000 people who have lost and kept off at least 30 pounds. They did not specify how you had to do it. So some of these people did lifestyle or commercial diets, etc. And the coolest thing about this group is that they've collected a bit of a list as to common attributes. So a few of them are waking up early, watching less than 10 hours of TV per week, exercising at least 1 hour per day, weighing themselves weekly. 98% of them changed their eating habits to a lower calorie diet. Why are some of these what we could consider small changes so effective?
They may seem really minor, but when you look at it, like the waking up early, that like helps us prep for the day, right? I know there's research out there that those that tend to get up earlier, they tend to eat healthier.
They tend to exercise more too. I should say people who exercise in the morning tend to be more consistent than people who do not, because guess what? It's already done. So you don't have any excuses.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I do when I get out of bed is my workout clothes go on and I go downstairs and I work out, because by the time I figure out that I'm working out, I'm already halfway done. And so I think that's some of it. 10 hours a week of TV, gosh, less sedentary time, right? The weighing themselves weekly. I talk to patients about this often because they'll ask, like, is it better to do it daily, weekly, not at all? And I always say, what helps you? I think it's good to have a check-in of some sort, as long as it's not harmful to you, like to have that check-in. And I have some patients that have to put the scale away and just do it once a week and then put it back away. But I think having that check to make sure they're not way off base.
And I should say that these are not small habits. They don't seem extreme when we look at the world of dieting, but exercising an hour a day, that's great. These people are working their butts off, and the reason that they're successful with weight loss maintenance is because they're doing what needs to be done. They are maintaining their lower calorie diet and they're burning and ideally maintaining or building muscle mass to keep that metabolism fight going. Thanks to people who have been successful at keeping weight off, we know a thing or two about what works. First, keep a lower calorie diet and try to avoid mindless snacking and liquid calories like alcohol, soda, juice, or sugary coffees. Next, try to be active. Find a type of exercise you actually like, whether it's taking a dance class or doing workout videos. You'll also want to incorporate some form of strength training to keep up your metabolism. And last, but certainly not least, consistency is key. Pick your new habits and stick to them. And if you know certain things might trigger your old habits, try to be proactive about avoiding them. So, those are great places to start and keep going. Now, let's talk about resources to help you along the way. We have a lot of people, especially in America, and I'm just going to say especially females, who find themselves, myself included, in yo-yo dieting, weight cycling. I think I could call this getting trapped into fad diets or what's popular this week on the internet. How can we help people get out of that pattern or cycle?
The first thing you need is to find a medical provider, whether it be a dietitian, primary care provider, endocrinologist, someone who can help you to break that pattern and figure out, how can I move forward in a way that I'm not going to continue this cycle that's harming my body, but that's going to help my body to live a healthy lifestyle? I think having that partner from a medical perspective is going to be critical for that person.
And accountability. And hopefully to share with them the big picture. Because sometimes patients won't believe me that I'm taking all of their diet rules away. They're like, okay, I do low carb and I do this and I do this and I do this. But they also tell me that it's not sustainable for them. So we're like, all right, let's wipe the slate clean and start to talk about what has worked, that is reasonable, that you can see yourself doing for a long period of time. And those might be super minor things, like I'm going to exercise in the morning. I'm going to eat breakfast. And they're like, wait, this is what you're prescribing me? Like, this seems like it's not going to make a difference at all. But my hope is that those small changes make an impact on their total calorie intake, so they do start to see some weight loss with time, and then they just continue. And so we have a really boring, slow reduction in weight.
But boring over time, slow, is so much healthier.
And we actually know that when people choose a variety of diets, good, bad, and otherwise, by the end of 1 year, whether you lost it super fast or super slow, most people end up at the same weight anyway. So it really doesn't matter what your graph looks like. You might as well do it slow and steady because you're going to still get the same race time in the end as someone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Weight loss, weight regain, all of everything that we're talking about is really frustrating. I think it's really psychologically difficult. How do we help people practice patience, self-compassion, and self-care through all this?
I think giving ourselves grace is one of the hardest things that we have to do through weight loss. This is a process and it's a journey, and a lot led up to this weight. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to lose overnight. And we need to work on, how am I going to do self-care during this time? How can I reward myself without food? How can I teach others around me to care for me without food? How can I speak to myself about my body lovingly? Because so often we beat ourselves up more about our bodies than anyone else around us. And the things that we say about our bodies, we would never say about someone else's bodies.
And I wouldn't even want my child to hear me say it about myself. I say it in my head,
Right.
of course. Don't say it in your head either.
A lot of weight loss is also learning to have patience through the process and being satisfied with the moment right where you are. And what can my body do today that it couldn't do yesterday?
Yes. How
Yes.
does walking up a flight of stairs feel? How does pushing your kid on the playground feel, or chasing a grandkid down the
Mhm.
street? How do your clothes fit? How's your blood pressure? There's just a million things that I could list.
And I tell patients all the time, did you write that down? Because on the day that you are having a rough day, you're going to need that reminder of why did you do this?
Mhm. Even if someone has been successful after bariatric surgery specifically, how often should they be checking in?
So in that first year after surgery, we recommend coming in essentially like every 3 months
Mhm.
to check in with the bariatric team. And then after that, we recommend on a yearly basis, essentially forever. Because your bariatric surgery team, they know your bariatric surgery better than anyone else in your healthcare team. What does that weight trend look like? What are the GI side effects? What's that diet look like? Are there any of those kind of like, "Ooh, I didn't realize that I was drifting away from doing what I was supposed to. Am I taking my vitamins? What do my vitamin labs look like?" Unfortunately, attrition or lack of follow-up is significant after bariatric surgery, often because of patients feeling like they're doing well,
Mhm.
or because patients are like, "I'm not doing what I'm supposed to, so I
I don't
shouldn't
want to
go
come
in."
in.
And as a provider, I wanna see all the patients. We wanna help patients wherever they're at, but we can't if we can't get them in the office.
I would always say, if you're doing great a year from now, that's awesome. I want you to come in. I will give you a high five. Julia will look at your labs and your blood work and your urine, and we'll say, that's great. And then we will let you leave. And if you're not doing well, I want you to come in and I want us to have a conversation, let's say about the 5 pounds that you've gained in the last year before that 5 pounds becomes 30 pounds, because I have seen that
Mhm.
before when someone comes in 10 years later and I'm like, I haven't seen you in 9 years. And they're like, yeah, I wasn't doing great. And I'm like, I wasn't going to yell at you. I was there to
Mhm.
help you.
It's hard to come in and ask for help, right? As humans, we want to just figure it out ourselves.
What are some resources if people want support outside of their clinical team? We're wonderful, of course, but what if
Mhm.
they want more of a peer support or online,
Mhm.
or they want to be a little bit more anonymous?
So, of course, there's a lot on social media. It can be a little scary, so just
Uh-huh.
be careful out there. So Mayo Clinic does have Mayo Connect, actually has a phenomenal support group for bariatric surgery, and it's moderated, and those patients are really interactive on there, and if there's questions, they'll actually reach out to the team, so I highly recommend that one. There's actually a blog on there as well, on the weight management blog. They are actively posting from our team. There's recipes that are on there. There's frequent questions that we get on all sorts of topics.
So that is connect.mayoclinic.org. So it acts as a support website for a ton of different diagnoses. So people who are going through the same thing that you or a family member is, whether or not you're a Mayo Clinic patient, actually.
Outside of Mayo, of course, there's plenty of other resources, but the thing that you want to be careful with is just recognizing, is it a reputable site?
Hmm. Absolutely. Do you have a story about a patient and their weight loss journey that you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
I do. I have a phenomenal story. Actually, I have a gal who I have followed for many, many years. When I first met her, she weighed over 400 pounds. And so she came to us and wanted to do surgery. And we told her that before surgery, she really needed to lose a little bit of weight. And what I remember the most about her pre bariatric surgery experience is that when she started with us, she could barely walk around her kitchen table, but she committed to starting walking. And so she would walk laps around her kitchen table.
That was her exercise goal.
That was her exercise. And she built up over time. And I remember, I think 6 months in, she walked to my appointment for the first time. And she said, "Did you see that there was no wheelchair out there for today? I walked here today." And you have to understand, Mayo Clinic is huge. And so to get from the parking garage to my office is like a very long ways. And so that was huge for us. And then she had surgery, and she was an incredibly diligent patient about coming to see me, and she's lost over 250 pounds. And the best part of her story is not her weight loss journey, but it's where she walks. So she and her husband now go to Mall of America, and they walk 5 days a week around the 3rd floor for an hour and a half. She changed her life.
I absolutely have goosebumps right now.
I adore her and her husband. So she is why I do my job every single day.
Julia, thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing all of your wisdom.
Absolutely, Tara. It was so fun to be with you today.
So if you're feeling stuck on your weight loss or maintenance journey, your care team can be an amazing resource. They can help you find a path forward that works for you, as well as provide accountability and encouragement. And if you've had bariatric surgery, check in with your team once a year, no matter how you're doing. We're happy to give you a high five or some helpful tips for how to readjust your habits. Mayo Clinic Connect is also a great resource to find other people who are going through the same things. It's a forum that's moderated by healthcare professionals, and there's other helpful content like blog posts and recipes from the Mayo team. That's all for this episode. But if you've got a question or topic suggestion, you can leave us a voicemail at 507-538-6272. We might even feature your voice on the show. For more On Nutrition episodes and resources, check us out online at mayoclinic.org/onnutrition. If you found the show helpful, please subscribe and make sure to rate and review us on your podcast app. It really helps others find our show. Thanks for listening, and until next time, eat well and be well.